Hi everyone. Just okay. Just real quick, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I see that my voice is coming across. Yeah, great. Yeah, wonderful. Yay! Ah, the crowd cheers. Okay. So just gonna wait for just a moment, get everybody settled, and then I will jump in there. Okay. All right, I'm going to get started then. And we'll start with saying hello. And I want to welcome everyone here. I want to thank you specifically for being here for my presentation today. I appreciate the opportunity to share our transformation story and what the Brain Energy Support Team is doing these days, especially in Second Life. To start things off, I want to introduce myself. I'm the Chief Groundskeeper at Etopia Sustainable Community. This 7-region eco-community is the backdrop, or stage, if you will, for best activities. And I'll share more about that in just a little bit. In real life, I'm the executive director for the Brain Energy Support Team. I can say BEST is an amazing organization, and I'm proud to have been working with them for almost 15 years. We're a US-based nonprofit created in 2008 by and for those with brain injury and their families. Our founding goal was to help those affected by brain injury transform their lives and empower them to be their best. BEST grew from a handful of people in Tacoma, Washington in 2008 to a statewide network in 2020 with over 2,500 individuals from across Washington state participating in monthly activities. This photo that I'm sharing with you here was taken in our Tacoma, Washington location in 2019. Yeah, see, Zinni and I can enjoy Dungeness crab together at some point. While we hosted many of our activities in a variety of locations, our primary in-person work was conducted in 2 Washington locations, Tacoma and Spokane. And if you're not familiar with Washington State, Tacoma and Spokane are on opposite sides of the state. So it worked well for us at the time. Additionally, over the years, we established partnerships within other communities of neurodiverse populations. We were working with them to understand and help meet the needs of others with cognitive challenges. Things were going well. We were in our comfort zone, really. And then SARS-CoV-2 hit. And what an impact it had. Between March and June of 2020, while COVID-19 was spreading like wildfire, everything at BEST just changed. In March, all of our in-person activities were suspended due to Washington COVID mandates. In April, we closed our Spokane, Washington office. In May, we learned that our largest contract would not be renewed because the funding agency shifted their priorities. And in June, we closed our main office in Tacoma. I can tell you, there was a lot of nail biting at the time. Even so, we knew that we were about to embark on an adventure to explore creative ways to facilitate community connections and education. I think, in some ways, the speed at which things happened really was the catalyst for doing what we had been talking about and dabbling in, actually, for a long time. I call them back burner goals because we were slowly working on them since 2013. And I'm sure we all have them. The things that we want to do that would contribute to the greatness of our programs or our classes, but we don't quite get to them. Well, that's what these were. And the three goals were to have a more robust online presence, to better utilize the experiential learning potential of Second Life, and to broaden our reach. Fortunately, we had the bones of an infrastructure already in place that we could use as a springboard for the future. Since 2008, because of our founder's vision of maintaining digital storage and online administration, we're already using Google Workspaces for email, for calendaring, for our calendars, okay? Some website development, and some document collaboration. All of our legal and sensitive documents, however, were stored and shared using Dropbox. At the same time, we had a networked version of QuickBooks so that we could have remote access for our accountant, our treasurer, for our staff. And that was switched to the QuickBooks Online version in 2015. In 2009, we put a virtual PBX, voice over IP phone system in place. This system, which we still use today, is hosted by RingCentral. In 2014, we began using Podio for project management and as our virtual workspace. This meant that no matter where we were, we could still communicate and collaborate with one another while continuing to move our projects forward. This was invaluable considering we were a geographically dispersed team. And also I traveled quite a bit for BEST during those years. Our board of directors, living across the United States, were accustomed to online collaboration and conducting online board meetings. Between 2013 and 2020, BEST was hosting online webinars. We were using Citrix, GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar at the time. And we were offering classes, online classes, to complement our in-person work. This was a way to reach a broad audience and to have professional resources available that service providers, educators, and others could access and learn from based on their own schedules. It was also the best way for us, for those with cognitive challenges to learn at their pace in their own homes. Note to self, no improvising. During that time, we also used meeting and presentation platforms to host monthly trainings for Washington State support group facilitators, for group discussions as an extension of in-person learning, and also as a way for folks to remain connected. These were tools we could easily adapt to what is now commonly referred to as Zoom meetings, but without the video clutter. This is a real consideration for many in our community with cognitive challenges. This should look familiar, right? I'm sure all of us can say we've attended more of these over the past 2 years than we care to count. A neurotypical individual can usually filter out what they're looking at and who's speaking, along with following the chat and avoiding external distractions. Not so for the folks in our community. It just isn't the norm. Video meetings are more tiring, and they're tiring in a shorter period of time for our participants than for other people. We're also more prone to distractions, and we're easily overwhelmed when attention to multiple things is needed. Also, rural residents often don't have access to high-speed internet. And over the years, many people reported they had older computers that they used mainly for email and web surfing. Knowing all of this was invaluable when, in 2020, we needed to adapt to tremendous change. As a result of everything COVID impacted, more teleconferences were scheduled and other low-tech methods, like phone calls, one-to-one phone calls, note cards, handwritten note cards, and texting were promoted. Also, video meetings would be held with all video turned off and only the host sharing their screen. A call-in number is always provided for these meetings. Additionally, we added more online events, such as scavenger hunts, living room picnics, group meetings, reruns of our workshops, and even a free Zoom course for those planning to host video-based meetings for their local support groups. We even, although the living room picnics were so much fun, we would do it, on a video like this Zoom thing, right? The Zoom image that you see. But we would just be in our own spaces. If we felt like contributing to the conversation, great. It's sort of like having lunch together, right? And also, one of the questions I had, somebody asked me recently about the scavenger hunts. And we did online scavenger hunts. So we would, come up with a topic and people would have to do a Google search to find out things. We also did scavenger hunts where I would say, okay, find a yellow flower in your yard or the first bloom and take a picture of it and share it with us. They could email it to me if they wanted to. So these were the kinds of things that we were doing at that time. And that was in March of 2020. And I may have mentioned, we even added a Facebook-style community section on our website for members of our best groups. So also in March, I met with the board and I proposed 3 scenarios depending on how things relative to the virus developed. Plan A was the obvious, right? It was based on the hope that COVID would be contained and things would go back to the way they were. And I can hear everybody kind of chuckling. Plan B was to scale back by closing our Spokane office and to cancel some of the in-person activities we had planned for 2020. Plan C was close both of our offices and move everything to an entirely online business model. By April, as things with COVID evolved, it became clear that Plan A, that is, nothing changes, right? We can go back to what it was not going to be an option. And we had to begin scaling back. In April, we closed our Spokane office and we canceled a 2-day symposium that we'd scheduled, along with canceling a summer barbecue we had scheduled. The goal then was to continue facilitating groups online as best we could, and work on transitioning some of the in-person coaching to online. And then May rolled around. It was in May when we received notice that our contract would not be renewed. I knew that it was time to look at our third option in a more creative way. As an aside, the contract I mentioned had been renewed every 3 years since 2010. And many of you understand that a single source of funding that makes up more than 60% of your revenue can be a real hurdle to developing other funding sources. And that had been our challenge over the years, even though donations were growing. In May, I recommended we bite the bullet and act on our Plan C, a fully online model utilizing what we already had in place, adding new tools as needed, and building on what we do best, facilitating connections and focusing on education, resources, and outreach. This would allow us to continue providing all of the support, education, and resources that were needed more than ever while we were rebuilding ourselves organizationally. So, based on what I shared earlier, you can see that we had a basic foundation to build on by the time COVID impacted our operations and programs. And I suspect that many of you have a similar foundation to build on as well. If you took a moment, you might realize you have tools you've tried and then sidelined. Apps you added to your Google Workspace, for example, but you haven't really used them yet. Systems for remote access to company resources that perhaps need just a little more security, some tweaking, or some more administration. Let's get back to our story. By June 2020, most of the board had resigned. In other words, of the 9 members on our board, 6 of them left for a variety of reasons, largely COVID-related. They or a spouse was a frontline worker. Someone became ill with the virus. Job layoffs, dealing with adjusting to remote work from home. School closings and having children around. And the list goes on. The 3 who stayed and those we have since added to our board of directors are exactly the people we need at this time. And the same is true of our operations team. In March 2020, our core team consisted of 7 people and 106 volunteers across the state of Washington. Today, we have 4 key personnel and several volunteers, and we all work remotely. Moving to a completely online mode of operation was difficult for some, especially those who favored in-person activities and couldn't adapt to online processes easily or chose not to for other reasons. All of this required a real shift in the way we looked at service delivery and our individual technical skill levels. While we were shifting our mode of operation, we were also in the midst of training our people. And all the while, Second Life stood in the wings, just waiting to walk out on stage and shine. For us, this was the beginning of a real paradigm shift. Thank you. It really felt that way. It became obvious to us, Buffy, that that really was going to be a pivotal moment for us, is to capitalize on Second Life and shift. So remember those back burner goals that I had mentioned earlier? Right? Here's a slide with the three main points. One, we wanted to have a more robust online presence. Second, we wanted to better utilize the experiential learning potential of Second Life. And third, we wanted to broaden our reach, increase our audience. Basically, the broaden our reach turned into reaching audiences that were comfortable utilizing online tools, learning online, and particularly enjoying or being comfortable with immersive virtual worlds like Second Life. I think I've explained about many of the things we did to solidify our online presence, and that did include beefing up our website. But what about the learning potential of Second Life? Now, one of the questions I often get asked is, what made us think about using a virtual world for programming? In 2008, the Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs asked us about veterans, brain injury, and Second Life. At the time, there was a PTSD region in Second Life that walked individuals through their trauma as a way to move past it. This was of primary interest to DVA. So, two of us joined Second Life, and we learned what was available in-world and how it was being used by others. We also explored different regions, visited galleries. We attended some presentations, we went sailing, and very quickly, we realized we could do things in-world that we could no longer enjoy in our first lives. Shopping at a mall, for example, live music events, festivals, social gatherings, even traveling to other places such as London and one of my favorites, 1920s Berlin. It meant, too, that we could enjoy a virtual picnic while sitting on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in Second Life for the 2009 inauguration of Barack Obama as the 44th President of the United States. It was an international crowd. You're not going to see that somewhere else, right? So I'm sure by now you've figured out that what started as a response to a request for information turned into an incredible journey in program services that, in my opinion, is unmatched in any other online setting. As a result of what we learned from that initial exploration, Best opened an information office with a meeting room at Etopia. We even adapted some of our online work for use in Second Life. We did presentations, we shared resources, we hosted workshops, and facilitated a monthly brain injury discussion. In February of 2020, we hosted our very first Best Cognicon, a brain health and information cognition conference. As a matter of fact, we're set to host our third Cognicon in Second Life this coming October, and you're all invited. Over the past 2 years, we've strengthened our partnerships in Second Life. We've made new friends, and we've formed new collaborations. We've explored other virtual world options, such as OpenSim, Web Worlds, and Kitely. But in truth, I have to admit, Second Life is our home. And it is here that we've created programs that use Second Life and Etopia for skills training, programming, and social connections for our community. We conduct board meetings in Second Life, team meetings, brainstorming sessions. We have project development meetings here, coffee breaks, and so much more in Second Life. Additionally, we host mindfulness exercises, caregiver respites, dances, workshops, field trips, and you get the idea. We've also had the opportunity to train with Marley Molina on utilizing her unique and creative use of symbolic modeling in virtual worlds, giving us an added depth and dimension to our skills building and identity work. And I believe Marley is doing a presentation Friday, that's tomorrow afternoon, as part of this conference. So a few years ago, Best adopted an overarching theme of superheroes. Creating and embracing ourselves as a superhero means we also have a creative way of discovering our strengths, aka superpowers. It also means we can explore the hard stuff, our kryptonite, in a safe and an engaging manner with coaches that respect us. The superhero theme really is about articulating how we see ourselves and how we want the world to see us. And in Second Life, it's amazingly fun to do. Because you can fly in Second Life. You know, put on a cape and you can fly. Anyway, Second Life is a remarkable platform to play with this superhero theme and how that engages participants. Everything we do in Second Life has given us the ability to easily and truly, inexpensively, infuse creativity and some fun into the hard process of navigating not only personal identity, but having a space to create systems and habits, as well as exploring and navigating all sorts of scenarios, situations, ideas, and processes that are relevant to our community. This approach, this added dimension, sets our work apart. Etopia in itself is an amazing community of passionate people and interactive experiences everyone can learn from. We do use storytellers to share information and to guide visitors and participants alike through everything that we offer. I might have a challenge shopping for healthy food or navigating a checkout stand. You might be interested in learning more about retail food cooperatives. Either way, you can go to the Utopia Food Cooperative to learn more about cooperatives. And I, on the other hand, can learn about navigating my real-world corner store. We can use the apartments in Bayview co-housing at Etopia to learn about daily living skills, such as cooking, organizing a living space, and managing a household. And our participants can do this with a coach or on their own with the help of a storyteller. Storytellers are found throughout Etopia, and we use them when working with our program participants. We even built a COVID clinic people can visit to learn about the virus, safety tips, and vaccination procedures. This takes away some of the unease someone might have about what to do, when to do it, and to understand the process better. And you can watch a video about it on our YouTube channel. In partnership with Whole Brain Health, we host a monthly Brain Busters discussion at Inspiration Island. We're working with the Autistic Resource Center here in Second Life to adapt some of our work to meet the needs of this incredible community. BEST also works with organizations such as Virtual Ability, educators like Zinnia Zauber from Peninsula College, and agencies like the Washington DVA and others on a variety of projects, including how to successfully support those with cognitive challenges in the workplace and in the classroom. These too are designed to engage participants and to allow them to practice newly learned skills in scenarios that are safe, comfortable, and that support success. All of us at this conference understand that virtual worlds like Second Life facilitate immersive, meaningful engagement that's not always available, it isn't available at all, frankly, in a video meeting like Zoom or Facebook or Twitter feeds, or really any of the online social platforms that exist. All in all, our audience has grown through our focused efforts in Second Life, on our social media platforms, and through continued partnerships, project collaborations, and outreach. For BEST, it's about brain energy and how to live our best lives. Second Life allows us to do this in more ways than I have time to share with you today, and in many ways that you here as educators and leaders of your organizations and participants in a variety of things that happen across the Second Life grid are already familiar with. However, I do want to let you know that we have 3 locations in Second Life. We have our information office and our developing superhero shop on the plaza at Utopia Island. We have our peer center at Utopia. This is where we do most of our work and our group work and such. And we have an office at Nonprofit Commons. Actually, we have a treehouse at Nonprofit Commons. All 3 landmarks are available in the gift giver off to the side here. It's the best box being held by the Phoenix. This giver will give you today's presentation, the slides that I've shared, information about BEST, plus some gifts. Okay. I invite you to visit our website, brainenergysupportteam.org, to learn more about BEST and our programs. And I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi. The change you want to see in the world, be the, how can I claim it as one of my favorite quotes if I don't quote it correctly? Anyway, the thought is to be the change you want to see in the world. And again, I thank you for being here today. I did leave time if there are questions or thoughts that you would like to share. If you want to post your questions in local chat, I will read them aloud. And if I could impose on someone from the mentor team to transcribe, thank you, Lucena. Just kind of, if anybody has questions, to transcribe my responses. Thank you. Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Well, the question that I see from Gentle is, what is the percentage of folks with brain injury in real life and in Second Life? Here in the United States, or actually globally, I think it's a person incurs a brain injury, trauma to the brain, every 21 seconds. In the state of Washington, for example, we have almost 5,000 people a year documented with brain injury. The thing about brain injury, and the statistics are way higher. I think it's like 3 million people a year in the United States, and more. Yep, every 21 seconds. So, and I think it's like 3 million people a year in the United States. And then a lot of those people that have a concussion or a brain injury wind up with long-term, sometimes lifetime residual challenges, whether they're cognitive challenges or physical challenges or a combination of both. So that's in the real world. In Second Life, I think that there are a lot more people than they acknowledge themselves. I don't know that I said that quite right. I don't know what the exact numbers are in Second Life, and I would probably venture from the people that I've met and the conversations that I've had over the years, probably maybe 8 to 10%. And they're in a variety of different groups. Yeah. So it was a little long-winded. All right, so follow-up question. How could Second Life or any virtual world be made more accessible for people with brain injury? So that's a really good question. And I think a lot of what can be done for individuals with brain injury in Second Life to make it more accessible is part of what you already do, Gentle, to really put out kudos to the work that you do in terms of working with individuals and groups on how they can tweak their viewers so that they're not being bombarded with particles from light shows, how they can mute sounds, and these kinds of things. I also think that not having a lot of information out, one of the reasons we use storytellers is because cognitively, when you have a lot of signs out, plus all of the wonderful, beautiful things that go into builds, people with a brain injury truly they're trying to analyze and decide what all that information is, and they want to pay attention to it all. And a lot of times they're trying to pay attention to it all at once. Okay? I think mentoring people with, especially those with cognitive challenges when they come in world, and creating spaces in which they can comfortably meet others and explore the fun things as well as the value of learning in Second Life. I hope I answered your question. Thank you. Thank you, Ava. Any other thoughts or questions? Yes. Pretty much. I mean, there's a learning curve in Second Life, but then after a brain injury, there's a steep learning curve in real life too. I think a lot of it has to do with stimulus, and are the tools offered in such a way that through a series of logical steps, we can in fact use those tools, right? So when you're doing builds, maybe making them a little larger. I know Gentle's done a lot of work on universal design and accessible design on builds. So one of the other things that when I was talking about logical steps that we do is create steps cards for people. So in a note card, we have it all right. We have all the steps out in a note card that we then share with them. So they can pull the note card out of their inventory and walk through the steps themselves. Great questions, Gentle. I really appreciate them. They spur me to share more. Sometimes I'm concerned that I share too much, and then other times it becomes painfully obvious I didn't share enough. So having questions always helps balance that out.
Jane is asking the question, is there work with neural movement in Second Life for people with TBI?
Is there work with neural movement? Not that I'm aware of. I have to be honest. But that would be something very exciting, Jane, for us to explore. We our goal is to create a cognitively supportive environment. And I know I only have a few minutes left, but every now and again, I do a presentation and a workshop on mirror neurons and how that helps individuals get the biggest benefit out of an immersive environment like Second Life. But I would be very open to more information and discussion about neuro movement. And so if you haven't already clicked on the gift giver, please do so. And again, I thank everybody for being here. And thank you. Yeah. Jane, yeah, let's connect and have a conversation about that. I'd be very interested. Thanks, Z. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to slide off to the side. You can still chat with me if you like, but I want to give the space to whomever needs to be up here next.